Hi guys, welcome to the second part of a two-part series I'm doing on EGR valves in the Volvo D5 common rail engine. This is found in the S60, V70, XC90, a number of other cars I believe. Over time, particularly with the higher mileage vehicles, they get clogged up with soot from the exhaust. Nice and easy to clean, so this video follows on from the bench strip down of an old EGR valve that I picked up. Okay, removing the EGR valve for disassembly and cleaning. So I've got a big box down here, I'm just going to put all the bits in. First thing we need to do is take the air box out. Take the bar off, take this pipe out. The EGR valve itself is there, just on the back. That's the cooler end, the other end is just behind here. Comes out of the exhaust feed. So, first job on this particular engine, we need to undo two bolts here. I think they are 10 mils. There's quite a lot of 10 mil bolts in this particular procedure. So, I'm going to collect all the nuts and bolts using a magnetic tray. Good enough for all the other stuff as well. Don't really need one of these, just makes things a lot quicker. Okay, so over here again. The airbox needs to have the MAF sensor removed. Unclipped from down here, that just slides off. Just those wires up out of the way. And the other thing we'll need to do is disconnect this pipe here. Jubilee clip. Pops off nice and easy. This has been out a few times recently, so I know it comes out nice and easy. That is the box out. And this big pipe collector out of the way. So we can now see a bit more of the EGR valve itself. That's the side of the cooler, and underneath here is the coolant pipe that feeds into it. So we'll block those off before we take it out. Need to disconnect this piece here now. To do that, the easiest option is to take the bar off the top to get good access down through the top. So 15 mil on the left, 19 on the right. That. To the top engine mount. We've just got two 14 mil bolts on either side of that, which I'll just whiz off with an impact driver. Is off. Box filling up nicely with bits. There's a Jubilee clip on the other end of this. Just down here, if I wiggle the other end of it. So I'm going to undo that Jubilee clip, which is just round to the left hand side there. Undo that and pop that off. Okay, kind of twists out, so that joins the stuff in the box. So now we can see this corrugated section leads into the back of the EGR valve. We're going to need to disconnect that here. Failing that, if it's too stiff, you can take it off at these bolts here. Onto the side. You need to clamp this pipe, disconnect them from the sides of the cooler unit. That's this long square thing, square section. A bolt at the top, 2 at the end, 4 at the front here. So we'll need to loosen this pipe and this pipe in order to be able to bring this corner piece forwards, and the EGR valve just pop out. More 10mm nuts higher on the front. Oh, gravity. Here we go. 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. Oh, sorry, I tell a lie, 1 on the bottom. Okay, there is a gasket here that clips onto the end. If you can see here, there's a little tab folded around the side. We need to keep that very safe. There it is, a little tab clipped around the side, so put it on the collection tray. Loose on the front, disconnected on the back. The next job is to clamp those pipes. Now there are really 2 ways of doing this job. We could just clamp the top one, because that one would allow the system to drain, and leave the bottom one, just pull it out of the way, because then all the water that's really going to, or the coolant rather, that's really going to fall out of it is just going to be what's in this cooling unit itself. Or what I'm going to do here is the easier thing to do is just to clamp both of those 2 pipes and keep as much coolant in as is possible. And multiple different ways of clamping. I'm going to use one tool that I've made just out of a piece of old scrap, and I'm going to use a mole grip here just to show you the 2 options, 2 easiest options that are available short of actually going out and buying a pipe clamp. So the first option is just 2 pieces of scrap metal. This is part of an old bat strap from a building project. All we need to do is unwind this enough for it to go comfortably around. That top pipe there. And this will allow you to put very even pressure across the width of the pipe. Let me just speed this up as I wind these on. Not a very interesting job, but super simple piece of tooling. Literally a matter of pence to make, and very, very effective. Right, so that is that clamped off, so we can undo the Jubilee clip. end will pop off nicely, so that's the one onto the side, and then the other one, this one down here. And this is the other way we can do this. I'm going to wrap a piece of cardboard around this pipe. To prevent my more grips from damaging it, and just clamp it tight. That's it really. Quicker and easier than the other. Just make sure it's nice and tight. This has been my go-to for years. Just make sure you put the cardboard on there so that you don't damage the pipes. They are a bit squishy, a few years old. So, at this point, we can pop these coolant pipes off without worrying too much about the flow out. There we go, just whatever's coming out of the bottom of the cooler now. Nothing coming out of the end of that pipe, which is nice. And that one will probably come out when I wiggle the old EGR valve out. Now there is another bolt that we need to get to here. That one there. And to get to that, I'm going to need an extension bar. I think it's a 12mm socket. I have to try this a couple of times. Oh no, 12mm, right first time. Happy days. Lucky, oh no, if I'm lucky it won't fall down into the guts of the engine, but it didn't fall far. Okay, so that's the 12mm for the side. I do have a replacement unit here. This is something I like to keep on my shelf just in case. I often have a car knocking around with the D5 engine on it. This is an old one I got from eBay, but properly cleaned out, stripped down and rebuilt. So what you can see here is that's the 12mm bolt that I just removed from the side. There's now another 2 on the back of the block that go in through there. After that, the whole thing just pops out. So 2 more bolts and we're done. Right, a little tool tip here. This is something that I didn't really appreciate the value of until I came to the first job where I had to do something around at the back of the engine. I was given this for Christmas a few years ago. It's only a cheap thing from Halfords, a little selfie stick with a mirror on the end and some LEDs, so you can actually see what's going on around the back. I'm familiar enough with this unit to know where those bolts are and to be able to feel for them, but even so, I can't remember what size they are. I think they're 12s. This is just super useful to be able to find those bolts and know that if it's not fitting, it's because it's the wrong size bolt. It is bigger than a 12. Try again. 13 maybe? Okay, 2 14s. Remember that for next time. So 2 14 bolts on the back, 1 12 on the side. That's the last 2. So the last piece to come off is either that Jubilee clip, the lipped end on this corrugated section, or the 2 bolts on either side of this piece here. I'm going to go for these 2 bolts because that is always a pain to get off, whereas these bolts do come out quite easily. However, it's a very tight gap and you do need quite a lot of patience and a flex head ratchet spanner. So let's loose. Go from there. Do not drop these nuts into the engine because there's lots of pipes down there that will catch them, and fishing for them with a magnet on the end of a stick takes blooming ages. I can say that with confidence because I've done it plenty of times. So once you get them loose, or loosen off, make sure you've got one finger on the end to push the bolt into the spanner so it can't fall out. And with that in mind, I'm just going to pause here and take these 2 nuts out, making absolutely certain not to lose them. So I'll be back in a sec. To the front, the unit itself at this point is really only held on by the one pipe still attached to that Jubilee clip. So I'm going to just pop that off there. And wiggle this out. Somewhat awkward. Loose enough, I can release the centre clip on the side. Just remember to plug that in afterwards. I'll just wrestle with it a little bit, trying to stop it hooking various pipes and cables with the coolant feed pipe on the way through. So, a little bit fiddly, but done. So that is the chamber where all the soot forms. Much easier to see what's going on after the cleanup. So this is the actual EGR valve part itself. The solenoid pushes from the right hand side, and the spring on the left returns it to a closed position once the solenoid releases. So the exhaust gas goes in through this chamber, can't go anywhere until the solenoid pushes the valve open. Once the valve opens, the exhaust gas goes past the side of it, through the cooler and into the air intake until such time as the engine management system has determined that it's running cool enough and can close this valve again, at which point the spring returns it to the closed position and the exhaust just goes straight out of the pipe. Okay, so that is the old EGR valve removed. Now in this case I'm not going to put this one straight back in because I have a previously reconditioned one that I cleaned up and put back on the shelf last time I did this job, ready to go straight back in. So simply the reverse of removal. Okay, so that is the EGR extracted on this flange here, 10mm, 10mm. 2 bolts on the back, both 14s. That needs tightening up, I'll do that in a second. In the front here inside there's a 12mm bolt, and on the front 3 10s to go back on to hold the air housing, air intake. So basically what's happening here is exhaust gas is passing from the manifold through this corrugated section into the valve here. The valve opens and closes, it allows the exhaust gas to go into a cooler. That's that section there, cooled by the engine coolant through these rubber pipes. The cooled exhaust gas with no oxygen in it goes back into the intake and dilutes the amount of oxygen going into the engine, which cools the explosions in the cylinders and thereby stops your catalytic converter from overheating, which is what it's all about. So the next job is to reattach these. Okay, so last job, we took this gasket off earlier on, that needs to go back on, just clips around that leg. You can't get it on the wrong way, it won't fit. Okay, now I'm going to locate the bottom one of these bolts first, because these can be a real bear to get in. There it is. So that's well located. I'm going to put this rubber pipe in on the left here to raise the angle of that middle section I'm just trying to bolt in. Tighten that up in a second. Nice and slimy. Now it should be easy enough to locate these top 2 bolts. Yeah. I'm going to raise those up. Locate them all before netting them up. Okay. Alright. Tighten this back up. Okay. Just check all the others. Didn't need to take this one off. Didn't need to take this one off. I'll just make sure they're nice and tight. So, next one to go back in from the box of bits is this pipe that connects onto the air box. Goes in around the top of the engine here. That's the one that connects in here. So thread that through, connect it in. There's a little plastic clip that connects onto this piece just here. In, wiggle it into the end of that rubber hose, and I'll tighten that one up in a moment once I've connected the air box. This is easier said than done, this one's always a pain. Come on, play nice. There we go. Okay, so that's the other end of that pipe. I'm not going to attach it on. I'm not going to attach it just yet, but that goes through there, comes out round the back. A slight change of angle there, so this is the air filter box going back in, clips in on the side. It's very common is for that clip to break. That's a little fix I need to still do. Yep, clips back in there. And not to forget, we have the intake on the side.
Like, they never ask anything complicated.
Okay, so one more Jubilee clip to tighten up for the back. That's the other end of this. Sensor back in, clip back in place. Really need to fix that. And we are very nearly back to where we started. So everything tightened up. Just to recap: 2 14mm bolts on the back, 2 10mm bolts from the corrugated section into the back of the EGR valve, 12mm bolt on the middle section of the EGR valve, 3 10mm bolts on the front, a couple of Jubilee clips here and there, and you're done. Nice and easy. I will do a bench strip down of the old unit that's come from this car in the same way I did with the one that's just gone back in. It was just sitting on the shelf as a spare part. They are ludicrously expensive to buy new, but you can get one from a breaker for about 20 or 30 pounds on eBay. You might need to take it apart and clean it up. I'll do a video on exactly how to do that. It's surprisingly simple, but the individual parts are fiendishly expensive. So last job here is the bar for the upper engine mount, which clips back on here, 2 14s on each side, and then the 18 and 15 in the middle. So we'll nip those up, take her for a run. I will just plug the computer in as well to make sure that the error codes have cleared. So let's just nip these up. Make sure both ends are lined up before you tighten them up. That is really yours. So done. Let's get the computer switched on and see if that's cleared the error code. That's it then guys, finally cleared the error message, engine service has disappeared, so we're just going to take the car for a run here. If that's been useful to you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Any comments, please drop them down below, I'll keep an eye on those, and if you click the bell, it'll keep you notified of any upcoming videos, and there will be plenty more with this engine. A few engine mounts to work on, drop links, all the things that usually go wrong, we'll be working our way through the list. So take it easy guys, I'll see you next time.